and we are going to spend a few more days of meetings, and then we'll be ready to go on Monday.
And as much of your work now kind of focusing on who you think might be available at the 9th and 16th picks.
Yeah.
12th and 16th.
Yeah. I think there's certainly leanings, as a staff, all of us being in one place and having our conversations, et cetera. That's what's happening now. We've just gone through the process of ranking at every position. We're going to do a top 20 ranking. Once we have that conversation, then we will begin to poll and see where we are. I think we have leanings based on my conversations with our staff at number 2. Could change. Interviews are always interesting, and you come into some information. Maybe teams become interested, and you start having conversations around, doing something else with the pick in terms of a trade. I would say our conversations right now, our decisions are, the longer conversations are around 12 and 16 for sure.
Yeah, what do you look for in these interviews?
I think much like what you guys would look for in interviews, I think an ability to, you see personality in the court, who they are off the court, and who's in their inner circle, what do they value, things that they can tell you about themselves. Ultimately, you're trying to determine whether this is somebody that you want in your franchise for a long time. The qualities, and that is different for everyone in terms of what their values are. I think for us, a selfless individual that wants to work really hard and understands what it takes to be successful in winning in this league. Are they too inexperienced to know that? Maybe, but the ones that it comes a little more naturally to, those are the ones that stand out. We've had some really good interviews. Yeah.
You have shown a willingness to trade your picks in the past, but at the number 2, I mean, would you characterize that as you'd have to really kind of be blown away by an offer to not use that pick?
Yeah, I think that's fair at this point, that it had to be a real mover. We've kind of, in our conversations with Glenn about the future of the franchise, I mean, we're not interested in trading our picks. We are in a place where having good young talent, and if we are fortunate as we were to be in a draft lottery and move up, to number 2, we're going to try to capitalize on that. So if something really moved us, then maybe, but it's not likely.
Oh, I kind of wanted to amplify that. Even last year, you were kind of making moves, some that didn't work out, to try to create an environment that still in her final year could make a push. So it was very much an immediate.
Yep.
Is it safe to say that you have a far more long range?
Very safe to say.
Mindset that maybe you've had since you gotten here.
That's exactly right. It's a different time. And so our path sort of, when I met with Glenn to kind of talk about really from the 2019 off season to prepare for the 2019 season, from that point where we analyzed the coming drafts and we talked about free agency and what was our path, what was our best path. And our best path at that time, we felt like, especially in getting Fee in 2019, was that we could get some solid free agents, put a solid team together that could do well, and we did. I mean, we finished in the semifinals in 2020. We were third in 2021, and we had a good enough team to be a playoff team last year. It just didn't happen, and so you kind of go now, as I shared with Glenn ago, the drafts are starting to change a little bit in terms of like our interests, and so the timing of maybe. Free agency was one that we say, hey, if we can get Courtney Vandersloot and to be able to play with Fee, everybody knows Brianna Stewart was a long shot, but she wanted to have a conversation, so that's a no-brainer. There were a few players that if you get them, then maybe you have a different mindset, and so when you don't, then your path is decided for you.
You mentioned yesterday on the conference call too that a big part of what you want, whoever you get, especially at number 2, is somebody who, while very talented, is aware of that she's going to have to work very hard to make it in this league, and won't come in necessarily with expectations, but with a willingness to maybe be coached.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's big. The culture piece, everybody wants that. We have Nafisa Collier, and Nafia is the epitome of what we want to see: a selfless person, a emotionally mature, handles ups and downs in a way that's just really impressive, better than I actually. And I think that making sure that we're giving her a team that she wants to play with, and that there's a clear direction with our team and who we're putting around her. That's important to us. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that there's a selfless individual that is talented and cares about winning first. That's what we want.
Coach, it's been quite a few years since you've had a pick this high. And I was just curious to hear if holding the second pick versus, say, the sixth pick changes the long sort of path to the draft process much, whether that's just be fielding more calls from teams interested in the pick or just knowing there will be a bigger pool of players to pick from as soon as you're on the clock.
Yeah. Number 2 is certainly easier than 6. In terms of conversations, yeah, there's been conversations around the number 2 pick, especially as it gets a little clearer, what teams want to do. So probably a little more conversations around the value, although, being in the middle of the first, there's decent conversations there too. But I think in terms of being able to lock in on players, we've done that pretty much for the season. We were never looking at more than, say, 3 or 4 players. At number 2, we were pretty locked in, and we've spent a lot of time on those players. And here's the hard part: is we like all of them. We like all of the ones that we talked to and considered, but you can only have one, and that's a situation where you go, it's not because the one was better than the others or did. It's just that was the one we landed on that we felt like was the best for us right now.
And this may affect holding picks 12 and 16 or just later in the draft more, but it's always been a quick turnaround from end of the college tournament into the draft. But with the extra year of COVID eligibility, it's, players are announcing whether they're going to go to the draft or go back as late as like this morning and yesterday.
Yeah.
How does that really just affect preparation? And have you been thrown off by anything in this past, week or two, or just what is managing that part of the process been like?
Yeah, it didn't affect us. I think, there's probably one player that maybe affects the middle round of the first round. But we're all pretty plugged in to these college teams and coaches and the people that are around the players, that we had a pretty good idea. So we weren't surprised by any of the ones that either said that they weren't coming in or ended up withdrawing. We weren't surprised with any of those.
Can you give us an update on Natalie and what you expect for her in terms of availability this year?
Yeah, the same way that, whether it was Fee or Odyssey or, that we're just kind of focused on Natalie's, kind of the healthy journey here to start her family. And then you just never know after you give birth. I always like to give that person the space to do what they should be doing, which is, becoming a mom and starting a family is pretty immense. And so I think the space and the time, Natalie will want to be around. She'll want to be involved in the Canada game in particular. So we're just going to take it as it comes. And so I have no expectations. Won't have updates on that for quite a while.
When you look at the roster, there is a need for true post players on that run. And this is a draft, unfortunately, it does not have, other than the presumptive number 1 pick, somebody who kind of fits that bill.
Right.
Having said that, is that something you might look at it with later picks? Yeah,
I think we'll certainly, that's an area of need. We'll certainly look at that at both 12 and 16. There's not a lot. And so I think they'll be gobbled up. Anyone that was viewed that, had a quality career. I'm not opposed to small ball. That doesn't scare me. I don't think
you talked about that. I mean, the kind of the offense we saw in the bubble when
That's
Syl
right.
hurt.
That's right.
You've always, even before Syl got here, you were running kind of high post facilitating centers.
Yeah,
Are there people like that in this draft?
No. No. That would be great if so, but no. And I think even looking back at those early years and how we played, and really how we've played, we won't get too far from how we like to play through elbows, et cetera. But even that for us, identity wise, will change a little bit. I think open post, as we know. But I mean, when you have Lindsay and Simone and Maya, who were terrific post up players, they were better at posting up than the post players were. So that was what made sense to invert the offense. I don't necessarily know that we have that per se, but we have players that can get to the basket and need space, including Fee. Powers needs space, to be able to play at the rim. So I think more of that as opposed to a big who's passing and like a Taj did or a Janelle did. More penetration probably for us and spreading the floor and defense. Yeah, we'll the defensive part of it is going to be interesting for us as we kind of determine our path in terms of who's playing and the strengths of them. We've talked to Fia. So Fia, you got to buy into the type of defense that we've always played and the meaning like a Rebecca Brunson or Sylvia Fowles, who are they're difficult to play against. And that's an evolution for Fee that we're hoping that she grabs hold of.
Speaking of Fee, has she been more involved in sort of the analysis of some of the players you might take, and just what have those conversations?
Not really. Every once in a while, like we'd be in touch about other things, and we would talk the college game, and she watches for sure, and she's really engaged and has been doing quite a bit. Matter of fact, she'll be here in town, and then she'll leave, and then she'll go be a part of rookie orientation, and then come back here and get to work. But she's really interested, but this process is a little bit different. We're not checking in and say, "Hey, Fee, who do you want to take?" She was very involved in free agency. That's just a different animal.
Maintain as a coach.
You mean rather than having a dynasty team? Is that my?
You know what I mean? It's a different challenge than you had.
It is, and I'm excited about that. I think the end in 2018. That was really draining, really draining, and then the lift that I call it the heavy lift that has been to do what we've done since 2018. It's really unheard of to go from those types of players and to continue to maintain a level of success of competing. In 2019 we finished the same as the 2018 team did. We were sixth. In 2020 we were fourth, and we were in the semifinals of playoffs. 2021 we were third. That's unheard of to be able to do that. And so now I'm challenged even more, as Sill's gone, and so this new era to figure out what the best path is, to be successful, because, we're only doing this to, you're never going to hear from us that, and we're going to hear a lot that you guys are going to talk about. You're going to ask me privately, are we going to tank for Caitlin Clark and shit like that? Like, it's just not how I would do things. If Glenn came to me and said, Cheryl, I want you to do that, I probably would step aside and say, let someone else do that. I don't believe in that. I think if you get there organically, and that's what you deserve, great. I am never going to try to be in that situation. Caitlin Clark might make you want to lose every game, but not here, not in Minnesota.
But as executive, you have to kind of take the long view.
Yeah, I think you can do both. I think, and then we are. We're in a long view, but it's just. My experience with those things is the people that tank aren't the ones coaching the great player, so no thanks. Good.
We will go with questions on the city. And once I call your name, if you can state your name and affiliation, that should be great. Mark, we'll begin with you.
Hey, Cheryl, Mark Schindler, WNBA.com. First of all, thanks for taking the time today.
Sure.
As everybody's mentioning, with this going in a new direction, and you're looking at development and the way that players can impact the floor and continue to grow. are there things that you look at as more developable or like skills that you feel really confident in being able to develop? And what are those?
Yeah, I think if you look at some of these prospects, most of the ones that we considered it too, being able to eventually score at every level, right? I think it's been written about ad nauseum in terms of who can't shoot the three currently, and I think that's a projection that we're trying to make with some of these prospects. But I also think, as I was just sharing with one of the prospects that, being who you are is really important, and doing what you do well when you come into camp is what should be their focus. And of course, every player gets better, as they evolve. And so, what are those things? I think if you have a base of how hard you play, that you play with a great pace. If you have a mindset defensively of being a good helper, a good rotational, aware player, you can develop into a really strong defensive player. I think if you are a rebounder in college, you're a rebounder in college. You're a rebounder in the pros. If you do not rebound in college, you probably are not going to be a rebounder in the pros. If you foul in college, you're probably going to foul in the pros. Can you get better? Well, you better. That develops trust. And so passing, you're not going to make somebody a passer that's not a passer. So we do look at assist to turnover ratios and things like that we value. Free throw rate is a translatable. But in terms of the improvement part, a lot of it is just the experience of our league. And most probably the areas to build the trust the most would be on defense, in terms of playing pick and roll defense, playing in rotations. That's what gets you on the floor. And so those are the areas that you really try to develop a player very, very quickly, so they can develop some trust to be able to do what they want to do, which is to play. Offensively, you want a player that can understand to keep things simple. And so that growth process in kind of their decision making, those are areas that you develop a player. It could be pick and roll decision making. It could be reading help, getting rid of it quicker, to be able to get it out to shooters. Or your decision to be able to be a great finisher at the rim. We developed the heck out of it. We call it finishing school. And in our league, it's different than college. College, they're standing there. Number one, you've got, you don't have defensive three, so you've got a bunch of people in the paint. That's going to be different. So just explaining and developing, what you do when you get to the RA area.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Patrick, next.
Hey, Cheryl, how you doing?
Good. Who's this? Patrick?
Yes, ma'am.
What's up, Pat Borsey?
I just wanted to ask you a little bit about get back to the way your offense is going to look. It sounds like that you guys are going to try to spread the floor, do some more spacing, and try to get some offense that way. What else do you think you need in order to make that offense work?
I would say at this point, passing. When I say passing, it's again not in entry into the post, which is what we've had with Sil for so long. Pick and roll decision making would be the biggest, and then again, what I was just describing is when you penetrate, your ability to decide whether it's your take or whether it's a time to share the ball. So I think we have a fair amount of offensive rebounding. I thought we were pretty good there last year. I think shooting. I think shooting is something that we're going to work really hard on, making sure that, because we do have the penetration, can we put the ability to really, space the floor with shooting, whether it's from the post or our perimeter.
And you traditionally love veterans and bring rookies along slowly, but this number 2 pick, whoever it is, do you expect to just throw that kid into the fire and have them play a lot right away?
And it's something that we've, coaches like myself, Brian Agler, who was in Seattle during championship years, you guys label us as not liking young players. That's not how you win championships when you have veteran teams, and it's just pretty simple. There's no one that doesn't like a good young player that you can develop. There's just a time for it, and so we're in that space. I'm excited about that opportunity. What was your question about the young player?
Yeah, just whether whoever you pick at number 2, given all your needs?
Yeah.
Is someone you're just going to throw into the fire and just have and just play right away?
I think it depends how training camp goes. I think if that player, shows us in camp that it would warrant, maybe a veteran not being the focus, that if that's the path, that path is going to be shown to us. I'm not opposed to that. But training camp will reveal that. And maybe it's not training camp. Maybe it's, early in the season. Maybe training camp will be a little more difficult for the player, which is likely. But maybe through the course of the first 10 games, we're seeing an evolution to the player that it calls for that. Then we could choose that path.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
And Jack, you are good to go.
Jack Borman, SB Nation. Cheryl, good to talk to you.
Hi, Jack.
With how many players you have signed already, both, to the attack the roster and also with training camp contracts, and how many picks you have, how do you balance the want to have a really competitive training camp with that long view, with potentially consolidating some of those picks on draft night if that opportunity comes?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said, the balance. I think all of us want to maximize our draft picks. And so if we look at the reality, maybe for a couple of our draft picks, and then there's an offer that makes sense to us, maybe to kick the can down the road, and that would be best, we'll certainly be open to that. And those conversations are being had. We just have to weigh, and it's probably a draft day deal because you got to see who's there.
Right.
You won't see us do anything beforehand. And we'll weigh that out. We want competition in training camp. We want to make sure that we are looking at every possibility to add good young talent to our team.
And then just with the veterans that you do have between, players like Fee and Kayla and Tiffany and AP, BC, just like how much more comfortable does that make you feel knowing that, whoever you do draft or how many rookies you do bring into training camp, that there's, some good veterans with a lot of knowledge, both of just the WNBA in general, but also with what you ask of players?
I think it's really important because I think what you see oftentimes when teams kind of go into a new era, maybe after they've had success, that it's usually the biggest challenge to get younger players to have good veteran leadership to really develop them. And that is something that I think is an advantage for us, that we do have that. Fee is really excited to take, young players under her wing and sort of show them the way. So, and it's not just Fee, the names that you mentioned, we have a good group to learn from. And so I am appreciative of that because I think that will really help a young player get acclimated and really understand quickly what it takes to be successful, especially in our franchise.
Thank you.